Hello and welcome inside the Chris Evans Podcast, a part of Second Banana Media, along with Superintendent of Guthrie Public Schools, Dr. Mike Simpson, also a member of the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activity Association Board of Directors, fresh off the February meeting. So.
Yeah, we got it over with, and things went pretty smooth, but we do have a special that we're going to have for Tuesday.
Yeah,
Things didn't go as smooth as we'd like. We've got to come back and do a couple other things.
There you go. Well, the discussion today I'd like to have with you is the shot clock here in Oklahoma, and it's a discussion that you've had for many months now. It started officially with, you've had on and off conversations as a board member with this, but it really came together in December. You guys started talking about this, and then letters went out, and you had a meeting about in January, and a meeting about, and talked about it more on February as well. But it was a letter sent out by the association, by the staff members, asking Oklahoma coaches about shot clock. Do you want it? Do you not? 486 members. So you're trying to make 486 people happy. And that's
good luck.
Good luck with that. But so this is, and we'll talk about the basketball game that took place this week. So this conversation has been going on before the basketball game on Tuesday.
It has. It really started, Chris, with the NFHS, which is the governing organization of high school athletics in the U.S. They're the ones that really come out with the rules. There's a rules committee, and they guide each state association on how their rules are going to be for all the sports. And so the NFHS rules committee met, and they made it a state option for the first time to have a shot clock.
Yeah.
We've had, and that was about a year ago, and then we've had discussions about do we try it as an experimental thing? Do we just put it in for classes B through 6A? Do we look at 5A, 6A? Do we look at 4A and up? What do we want to do? Or do we do nothing and leave the game the way it has been? And since Dr. Naismith nailed a peach basket up in the gym in Springfield. And so that's what started that discussion. And then as a board, we always want to weigh a lot of things with any decision that we make, because it affects, like you said, 480 schools, and you multiply that times in basketball, minimum of average probably 30 kids per, when you have a boys and a girls team, both per high school. And so you're touching a lot of people in our state.
And the vote came down 7-7, came down to a final shot, if you will, 8-7 in that vote, and it was really, from my understanding, the 3A through 6A coaches majority wanted. It wasn't a super. It was close to, I guess. It was superintendent supermajority. It was a supermajority, I do believe.
I'm familiar with that term.
We'll use supermajority for your sake here, but for the smaller schools, I think B through 2A did not want that, and so now do you implement it for one group and not another group, or you wait to do it all together? What was that thought?
There was a lot of things, and for people that maybe are unaware, I coached college basketball. I coached high school basketball at the 2A level, high school basketball at the 4A level. I've been an athletic director at the 6A level. So I've got a pretty wide spectrum of basketball experience, and we've got several people on the board that have a lot of basketball experience as well, either as coaching or as a player. And so when we looked at how do we implement this? It's a really, there's not a blueprint for it or anything like that. And you talked a little bit about the vote. I was a no vote. And I have reasons for that are maybe different than some of the other board members. Some of them are just totally purist basketball folks that think it's going to make the game, it's going to harm the game. Some of them want to see the shot clock because they think it's holding the game back, or that it's keeping kids from being ready for the college game. Yeah. So there's a lot of different outlooks on that went into those votes. Very seldom do we have a split vote, and our board is it's proportional, or not proportional, but the large schools have a representation. The different parts of the state have a representation. Mid-sized schools and small schools all have representation on that board, as well as athletic directors, multi-high school districts. Lots of representation. It's a 15-member board.
Yeah, and you talk about with your background with basketball, and you got a first-year girls basketball coach in Guthrie, Brett Clark, who played at 2A Dale. She has been assistant coach at El Reno for a couple of years, her first-year head job here in Guthrie. But also she played JUCO basketball, and she played Division I basketball. And I asked her the same question after the vote came down, and she goes, she really wasn't a big adjustment for her going from high school to college. The clock didn't really come in. And I think that's probably the same thing on 5A and 6A. We'll get small basketball here in a second, but 5A and 6A, it's really up and down a whole lot. I think the only time it really comes in is toward the end of a game when you start thinking strategy in that deal. But I really haven't seen a necessary 5A, 6A, although they're the ones who want the shot clock.
Well, I think what I've always felt is that the shot clock it almost assures the best athletes have the best chance to win.
Yeah.
And but there is strategy with the shot clock, just like there is without the shot clock. And part of my experience, I spent 17 years after my coaching career evaluating officials for the Big 12 for men's basketball. And so I've watched a lot of college basketball at arguably the highest level of Division I basketball as well. And, there's a lot of strategy involved with the shot clock as well. I don't know that it robs people from strategy as much as it changes the strategy.
Yeah. 2-for-1s and, possession, all that good stuff. It also comes the technology part of that. And I don't know. I would not ever want to be a shot clock operator on any level. You really have to concentrate on every possession. You have to see if it hits the rim or don't hit the rim. But with that being tough and finding clock operators, and we'll talk about cost and all that good stuff. But the technology of it, a lot of things comes in. It didn't hit the rim. It did hit the rim. Well, we're working on shot clock. We're not going to have video replay if it hit the shot clock or not. It hits the shot clock.
A lot of people may be unaware of all of the technology that goes into a college basketball game and timing now. It is much more technological than it was when I was coaching college basketball. Back in the dark ages, when you had a scoreboard with the game clock and you had a shot clock, and they were independent of each other.
Right.
And you relied on the operator for each one of them to
just like football.
Yes, just like football, to stop that clock when the whistle blew. And in the shot clock to reset it when the ball touched the rim, hold the reset button until possession was gained.
Yeah.
It's much more technologically advanced now. The clock in college basketball stops based on radio signal from each official. Yep. And they have a belt pack with a microphone that goes to their whistle, and it's tuned to the frequency of their game whistle. And you'll see them tune them in when they first walk on the court in an arena. And they start the clock and they stop the clock with that whistle or the belt pack button. You still have an operator, and they start the clock as well and stop the clock. But the official has the first stoppage to it. So there's a part there. The other part of this is in college arenas now, the shot clock is interlocked with the game clock so that when the game clock stops, the shot clock stops as well.
Okay.
The operator only presses reset. And so that eliminates so much of the human error factor until technology fails.
And that's a lot of technology at the college level with programs that have $multi-million budgets and all that stuff. We're just working on a shot clock. So there's a lot that the implementation would just be a clock operator at courtside until time can build up to that. So,
the part of, and even when you watch a college basketball game, if you watch a college basketball game and there is a stoppage of play for a timing error, about 90% of the time, that is a shot clock issue. It's not a game clock issue.
Right.
And that's with the best officials in the game, the best shot clock operators and table personnel in the game. And how do they solve that? How do they solve that error? Well, they stop the game, they go to the monitor, and they review the footage to make sure they get it right.
That's not going to happen in a lot of high school basketball games.
Well, and there's probably 85% of the schools in Oklahoma that their scoreboards are not capable of, even if they bought the shot clock, of interlocking to take away that human error factor.
So now you're looking at investing in new scoreboards, and
Potentially.
Potentially.
Or they are standalone.
standalone. Yeah, that's the cost. You can have standalone.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone pictures the shot clock as we see behind us on top of the backboard, but there's some that you can put on the wall. There's some I've seen on rollers. Especially emergency situations when the top ones go broke, they roll it down. I think Maui, they have them on the floor as well. But there's a variety of them at cost effective. So I think, cost is always a thing. I think it came up during your board meeting.
We figured probably around $5,000 per set for most. There are options that are less expensive, but for the most part, around $5,000 per set.
The other thing that came up, if it was approved for the large school and not approved for the small school, what happens if Crescent goes to Kingfisher or Kingfisher has the shot clock, Crescent doesn't? Do you play whoever has that home game? Do you play it, not play it?
That's that discussion took me back to the decisions of what, in the playoffs when baseball or softball, when do you play? And if everybody's not on board on when you start a regional tournament, then you go to this. And if everybody's on board, you'd go to this. And it's all over the map, while the game officials that you've hired have to administer the way we're going to have the rules that day. It's not something that can't be done.
Right.
But the schools that are on the bubble that maybe would play some with a shot clock and some without, potentially could be the coaches and the kids could be at a disadvantage because they're not used to it.
Yeah.
Either way.
Well, and you said the NFHS last April allowed that basketball states that have the basketball. Have you guys? I'm sure staff is looking as well at how other states. Is there states that do it really well?
I believe there's 10, and I don't have any information on how successful they've been and how happy they are with it and to what level they've implemented. But I believe, obviously the last 48 hours or so, there's been a lot written about the shot clock. But from what I've gathered in reading those articles, there's about 10, I think, states that have implemented it, and about 40 that don't have it.
Okay. Well, and we mentioned this, the OSSAA board of directors have been talking about this for a while. They talked about it in December, they talked about it in January. I mean, of course, nationwide this week in Oklahoma, Anadarko Weatherford played a basketball game. Weatherford jumped out to a 4-0 lead and won the game 4-2. Anadarko actually had a chance to win it at the buzzer with a 3. Nationwide, I mean, you take a look at some of the different sites, CBS Sports, USA Today, Yahoo, Sports Illustrated, I think Golf Digest, Microsoft, the Associated Press have done this. So it has definitely picked up. And I would say, Coach Shumpert, I know you know him personally, he's a Hall of Fame coach. And now he hasn't necessarily won games 4-2 or lost or won 4-2, but there are some games in all of his hundreds and hundreds of wins that maybe there were some 23-19s mixed in there, and there's opinions, as you can imagine, on both sides of this issue.
Before we started recording, I was reading some opinions on social media about people that obviously don't know Coach Shepard, a longtime friend. I was thinking this morning, I think maybe he and I coached against each other around 29 years ago is when we first met. Yeah. And we've maintained our friendship through the years. I always try to, during the march to the playoffs, I always try to, if I can, catch his team in a playoff game. Many times they're at the state tournament. Been very successful. One of the things that that his teams are consistent about is their discipline on offense.
Yeah.
They are one of the most disciplined high school basketball teams you will ever see. And they will get the shot that he wants them to get. And I actually spoke to him this morning.
Okay.
We had a good, about a 30-minute phone conversation this morning. I told him, I said, Doug, no matter what you do and how you coach, you're not going to change my vote.
I was wondering if he was really trying to put an emphasis on there. And the playoff seedings for 4A was put in last week, and so the game really, as far as playoff seedings and all that stuff, really didn't mean anything. So I didn't know if he was trying to send you a message that, hey, let's take a look at this. But it was interesting because you always talk about the team that plays keep away, and it was a little bit where they weren't just go some of the A and B state basketball tournaments, and sometimes they just hold the ball in their hip for 4 minutes. At least there was a little bit of movement on there. But I always talked about Coach Shumpert kind of gets the part of it, whether you like it or not like it, and that's your opinion. But the other team was set. I think they were in a zone. Weatherford was in a zone most of the time. You can probably stop that and come out and do that, and that was a coaching decision.
Well, and the way high school rules are, if you're closely guarded, you have 5 seconds to advance past the person you're guarded, or change either to an active dribble or to stop your dribble once you've started.
Right.
So you have essentially 12 seconds before you should pass the ball.
Right.
If you're closely guarded. If you're not closely guarded, you don't have that. And so it takes two.
Correct.
to make this two teams to make this happen. Yes. I've not watched Anadarko play this year. I did watch Weatherford earlier in the year when we were in the Kingfisher tournament with Guthrie. And Weatherford's a very talented team.
Yes, they are.
And big, and have some guys that I think could play on Saturday, either on the hardwood or on the football field. Mm-hmm. So they have really good athletes for the 4A level. And this morning when I was talking with him, he was very open with me. He did not. It was not his game plan going into the game to do that.
Okay.
It was a situation that, as the game evolved, that he made the decision along with his assistant to pull the ball out, and it takes, like I said, it takes two teams to do that. And I just amazed at the people that seem to think he's the one that completely controlled that.
Correct.
Because that's not true.
That's not true at all. That's not true at all, because we're at the big house, and those teams just hold the basketball, and they're not being closely guarded. I mean, they're near midcourt, and the closest defender is at the 3-point line. Yeah. So they're letting it go on.
And the thing that when I was talking with him this morning, he kind of went through. Weatherford was in a 1-3-1 zone. They had some time where they switched to a man-to-man, but it was a very soft man-to-man.
Yeah.
And so it would have been very easy for Weatherford to come out and pressure him, and if they get a turnover, they're going to go score. So I'm sure, I did kind of see some things from the Weatherford broadcast. I didn't get to watch the whole thing. I saw some clips.
It's best to watch it when they fast forward really quick. That's the best way to watch it.
but I did see some comments made and things like that. But I'm sure it wasn't very interesting for the fan. But watching things like that as an old basketball coach and a purist, I do kind of get into that, because I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's going to come, what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And surely, and in fact, I told him, that night, Tuesday night, about 10 o'clock, I opened my phone to Squirtle, and I looked at the score, and it was 4-0 at the time.
Yeah.
And I thought,
someone's not updating the score.
I thought, and it said fourth quarter. I thought, that can't be right.
Yeah.
And then I see the score changed.
4-2.
Yeah.
Great baseball game.
Final. Yeah. And so, it is what it, but that's an anomaly.
Correct. Maybe that was the strategy of the coach that if we can't run up and down with them, we're going to get blown out of the game. And Anadarko was probably an underdog on the road to Weatherford, and he thought that was his team's best chance to win it. And I guess they had a chance to win it at the buzzer.
And he told me, he said, we'd lost, I think he said like 4 in a row.
Yeah.
To good ball clubs. And he said, we're not playing bad.
Yeah.
We're playing really good ball clubs, and we've lost some games, and give our kids a chance to win. Playing within the rules, this.
I can see this not getting up and down. It's Weatherford's homecoming and all that stuff, but both sides. Weatherford could have came out in full court and all that stuff. So.
And so it takes 2 teams to produce a game like that, and this is an anomaly. It doesn't change my view of how of where I am on the shot clock. And so, it just it's getting a lot of notoriety but shot clock doesn't it changes the strategy.
Yeah.
I don't know that it takes away the strategy, but I think it changes it.
So it's eventually going to come.
Well, I'll say this. I voted no. We talked about this in January. It was voted down 8-7. And the first thing I did when I got back to Guthrie is I called John Chaplin. I said, we probably better order some shot clocks because it's probably going to come.
Yeah, eventually.
But the reason I wanted to go ahead and get them ordered is, it is an expense. And, we're fortunate in Guthrie now that we have a very nice, it's not huge, but a very nice gym to play in.
Yep.
And we now have a gym that is of quality to practice in, so that our teams have 2 locations.
That's the other thing. I forgot about that. Multiple locations for practices.
But so that's the thing that people can lose sight of is if it's $5,000, but you've got 2 gyms, it's really $10,000.
Yeah.
And that's because you're not going to send you're not going to have one gym where you can't practice in game conditions and another one where you can.
Yeah.
And so the reason I said, let's go ahead and do it is because we've recently put in new scoreboards in the main gym and for the first time had a scoreboard in the practice gym.
Yep.
And since they're both new, we can tap into the technology of getting something that's compatible to interlock with ours, so that if we stop the game clock, the shot clock stops. So that removes, whenever we do, that removes one of the human error elements in how we would administer a game.
Okay, I got to ask you one tough question because I got to get at least one tough question from you.
I knew it was coming.
So what's it take for Dr. Mike Simpson to switch his no to a yes?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're probably gonna have a vote every year until it passes.
And I think it may be someone else that switches the vote.
It's true.
I don't think it's any secret, Chris, that I'm somewhat hard-headed.
Well,
about certain things,
right?
But I think
I know that I was you to change your vote.
It's not the Anadarko Weatherford game.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was just it hit a good news cycle too for
it was timely.
It was perfect time. Yeah.
And I when I saw that, because
here we go,
because Doug Shumpert, one of the things that I said, his teams are very disciplined offensively.
Yeah, top 10 team.
They will work the ball until they absolutely find a good shot. And that's hard to do. When he and I were on the phone today, I said, if you were to take a college game and just tell them, okay, we're not going to play with a shot clock for this game. And you guys are going to only look at good shots. I don't think they could do it in a college game.
No.
And I think that's something that's wrong with the college game. And then, of course, he was joking in a text with me later and said, well, this is, if we've got to get kids ready for college with the shot clock, don't we have to get them ready for high school and move it to junior high? And I said, I hope my son's through junior high before that happens.
Yeah, the YMCA does not want to have this conversation right now to get it all ready before that. So man, I appreciate you stopping by, talking about this. And it was a 35-second clock.
Yeah.
Was there ever discussion 30?
No, and you know, that kind of goes back to the
Old
time
school used to be
differential
45
is 45.
seconds.
When I was coaching college basketball, it was 45 seconds. That can actually, and I think even, I think you can make the case for 35. It can actually slow the game down.
Correct, absolutely.
You can end up with fewer possessions with a 45-second shot clock. And I've seen that before when people wanted to slow it down. So this notion that it's going to speed it up, it will change it. I can't promise it's going to speed it up.
You start thinking 2 for 1, then you start,
Yeah.
well, maybe 3 for 1. We got to come down here and get a shot up real quick, and it's got to be good. It might not even be a good shot. And now then you start talking about 6-0 runs, 8-0 runs because you're trying to play the shot clock.
Yeah, it changes the strategy. It does not, but I don't know that you can truly make the case that it's going to, by and large, for every game, speed it up.
Great discussion.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Dr. Mike Simpson, Superintendent of Guthrie Public Schools, also the Board of Director on the Oklahoma Secondary School Activities Association, talking about shot clock in Oklahoma. Not this year, maybe next year, we'll see. But appreciate you stopping by as part of the Chris Evans podcast.